was a novella written by Truman Capote, and we optioned the rights, took them into Paramount. So we started what is usually called in the entertainment industry development hell and started developing the screenplay.
I love the screenplay, but I've loved a lot of screenplays that haven't made it. So I wasn't foolish enough to make that a part of my consideration for doing it or not. I would have done it if I had to crawl all the way up the Walk of Fame, you know. That was a big opportunity for me.
Audrey was under contract to Paramount. We just thought she would be wonderful in it. Paramount didn't think she would play it because she was such a kind of sweet and proprietary kind of lady that they didn't think she would play a part where a woman gets $50 to go to the powder room.
Certainly in her mind, and understandably so, it was a big jump from the Capote Holly Golightly to our film's Holly Golightly, and she just didn't know whether she could do that sort of thing.
I thought she did a wonderful job. I liked it because she was very naive, and it was like playing against that character. And I think that's what it takes to play that part and get away with it, you know?
I just told her I thought she would be absolutely great, not to expect her to be the Holly Golightly of Truman's book.
Both originally visualized Marilyn Monroe in the part, and she probably would have been allowed to play the character as he had created her in the book, but they unfortunately wouldn't let Audrey do that.
You kind of would have expected Marilyn, who, you know, was very sexy, she was kind of obvious for the part, and so we thought we could do better. And when Audrey said she would do it, even though Paramount didn't think she would, that's how we got her.
I don't think that the majority of the audience in those days really ever thought of Audrey Hepburn as a hooker, as a call girl. I bet you they didn't even, when it was over with, they didn't even know. So $50 for the powder room? So she was an escort lady.
I found myself wishing that she could have done the part as written. People didn't know how earthy and how true to life Audrey was, how aware she was of whatever went on in the world.
George had a great physical presence. I think the two worked. I think it worked well for the two, because he still had a lot of that innocence that I think made it attractive to her.
We liked each other as human beings. He admired me greatly, I found out, as a director, and what I did in that film. And I didn't want him in the movie. If you would ask me, and I hope you don't, that, you know, would I cast him now? I doubt I would. He just didn't have whatever it was that I wanted. He wasn't my cup of tea, and yet I loved him. We had great times.
Well, I want to tell you, I'd worked with him at the Actors Studio, and we'd gotten along superbly. I really loved him. I mean, he was divine to me and flirted with me, and it was so good, you know. And I was so thrilled to be doing this film with him. Well, he had been spoiled, and he wanted things as he wanted them. And I had dominated him a lot more in the script. And he didn't want to be seen in that condition.
The first day of the film, we were shooting the first scene in the movie, which is when the taxi cab pulls up to the curb in front of Tiffanys at 57th and 5th Avenue.
Came the time to shoot, and it was as though God said, well, I'm going to give you a break now, but for the rest of your career, you're just going to have to live off of this one. And nobody appeared. No cars, no people. It was suddenly deserted with the sweep of his hand, you know. C.B. DeMille wiped out the whole traffic situation, and we had our shot.
George Axelrod wrote the brilliant script, but the cocktail party was pure Blake Edwards.
He called me one day and he said, I'm going over to the set because I'm going to do this crazy party sequence, and I'm just going to play around and see what I can use.
The script itself didn't delineate that much in terms of party shenanigans. And that meant that I was going to have to invent it.
But we just walked around seeing what kind of crazy madness we could create. They had the one thing where he was on the floor crawling to get the telephone that was ringing that was in a suitcase, you know, things like that.
Actually, in the party sequence, a lot of it was choreographed, I think, as they went along.
And I ordered up champagne, and we had a party. And I told him that. I got him around, and I said, you know, now you're going to help me out, see if you can come up with stuff. And knowing actors, and everybody was going to come up with something at that point, and did. And out of that, I selected a lot of stuff that led me into a lot of stuff that I thought was fun and creative.
I remember that he would walk by me and he'd say, what am I going to do with you? And about the second or third day, he comes by and he said, I know. He said, you're always laughing, so I'm going to put you in front of a mirror and you can laugh your head off.
Then he dreamed up a crazy thing with another actor, and he said, why don't you two, I'm going to do a big close-up, and you two be arguing. And he didn't tell us what about. And in the middle of our argument, he pulls up the patch and didn't need it, so it was just kind of a crazy moment.
And then, 2 or 3 days later, he said, you know, by now I think she might have a crying jag. I said, yeah. And he
Just had a party. Had it been otherwise, I think it would have taken 2 weeks. And it didn't take anything like that.
Favorite scenes is the last scene, you know, with the cat.
Phew, boy, did that cat smell. Get that cat wet. And that's not easy when you've got the lights pouring down on you and you can hardly breathe anyway. And then you bring the cat in and she's got it in the rain and right up her nose. It was awful.
What makes it still an important movie is, I think, it's the romanticism of the film and the relationship, and when Audrey is the most vulnerable, and when George Peppard talks to her, when she's going to run away, that last scene in the taxi, and then when she goes and finds the cat, and they're all hugging in the rain. I'm an old romantic, I guess, but that's my favorite part of the picture.
It just gets into your soul, gets into your heart, may even get into your tears.
I don't think there would be anyone that could ever follow Audrey Hepburn in any role because, I mean, she was unique.
And it's a movie everybody can identify with. I think a lot of people have that kookiness, whether they let it show or not, you know. I think a lot of people wanted to be Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Showing us who she really was. She really made you look into her soul. And you see it whether she played a princess or a nun or a flower girl or Holly Golightly.
She just had a grace and a beauty and a charm that I can't think of anyone else like her. And yet with it there was a sweetness and a vulnerability. She was just delightful.
That movie was made like a classic. I really think that everything Blake does becomes a classic.
I got real lucky. I like to think that I added a lot to those things, like the party. That certainly wasn't written the way I shot it. And so we complemented each other, everyone kind of.
I think at the end of the day, the picture is famous not so much because of what Audrey was as a human being, but because she represented something that I think women care about.
It's kind of movies like they don't make anymore. I think that's part of its magic for today as well. And we should make more films like that.